I just got back from an amazing vacation with the family up in Chicago, but it gets more crazy because in just a couple days, I
to be flying out to Dana Point, California to do a lot of surfing, a little bit of judo, a little bit of kendo, and a whole lot of nothing else. So that gives me roughly 14 days to get through an order queue that I am so blessed to say is 7 deep that came through when I was on vacation, and any other blessings or any other surprise orders that may come along the way. So if you've ever wondered how a Madlad body is made, if you've ever wondered about my process, if you've ever wondered how the word mad works its way into Madlad, I think these next 2 weeks are going to be just a little bit mad. But I couldn't think of a better time to bring you guys along. Let's go make some chips and send some guitar bodies and see if we can't make some beautiful wood along the way. Here we go. Welcome back everybody to Madlad Instruments. My name is Drew, and for those of you that are new around here, I am a small shop owner based out of McKinney, Texas. I build guitar bodies and bass bodies and all other manner of instrument chicanery and buffoonery, and I am so blessed to be at this game. I have been in business for about 1.5 years now. January of 2024 was my kind of unofficial start date. And along the way, I've learned a lot. I've taken some hard lessons, and there's still so much that I need to learn about the world of guitar building. But I hope that this video kind of serves as a first pass. I'm going to go through my process literally from when an order comes in to when it goes out. The first sort of half of this video is going to be very structured. The back half is literally, once I show you the process, it's just kind of catching up and seeing how many bodies we can ship out. So there's a lot of things that I will do that are kind of muscle memory. I've just always done them, but they may be hard to explain, or I just don't think to explain them along the way. So if you see something along the way that you're like, hey, that's kind of cool, or I wish I knew a little bit more about that, leave it down in the comments. I would love to answer your questions and see if I can't elaborate a little bit more. Maybe we'll make a part 2 or make this a recurring series. But like I said, time is of the essence. We have 7 orders in the queue. We got to get going, and so let's see where it all starts.
So you may be wondering, where does a Madlad order start? Well, really it starts on Reverb, but after you purchase something on Reverb from me, what happens? So we start here at my dining table that I've also kind of repurposed into a pseudo shipping hub. Don't worry, all this is going to get cleaned up and organized. We still eat here, but I've been repurposing it for a little bit. So whenever you place an order, ideally, the minute that your order comes through and I reach out and stuff like that, I like to reach out to all my, artists and clients and customers and stuff like that, just to introduce myself, let them know like what my lead time is and, what we're looking at, and to clarify a couple notes and see if there's any special requests. But ideally, once I reach out and we hear back from each other, then I will come over and start filling out one of these. This is a body build summary, or sometimes you can call it a body traveler, a work traveler, a bill of work. There's a lot of different names for it. Basically, it's a sheet of paper that just outlines what you're going to be building. So I'll kind of take you through it here so you can get a feel for what my process is. And if you ever buy a Madlad body, this will also come with your order, just so you can see what all we worked on. But it obviously starts out with artist name and order date. I sort everything by first in, first out. Whenever you order it, you go into the queue and you kind of go in first in, first out. It works easy for me. It's worked for a lot of other manufacturers as well. I think about Dumble, the legendary amp maker of old. And apparently if you just like order a Dumble amp and he would quote you a time and you wait. And if you called in to ask about your order, he would just straight up cancel it. Or so I've been told. I'm not that ruthless. I love, working with people and stuff like that. But typically I'm usually about 4 to 5 weeks out, or sometimes even longer, depending on the depth of my order queue. I always like to quote 4 to 5 just as kind of a baseline, because I've had CNC machines like break on me, and, extenuating life circumstances will happen. And, it takes a couple weeks to get those things sorted sometimes. And so Mima, my sweet Southern grandma, God rest her soul, would always say you want to under-promise and over-deliver. So if people get their bodies a little bit earlier than the 4-week turnaround, then I'm a happy camper, and I think they are too. But if I need that little bit of extra time, then I've quoted it already and the expectations have been set. So that's a little bit of behind the scenes with how I quote my build time. So if you guys are ever purchasing from me in the future and you get a build time, you kind of know where it's coming from. But anyway, artist name, order date, first in, first out, all that good stuff. Fabrication is the CNC and kind of sanding part of the body production process. So this is where I'll write like the model name, what material we're using, 2-piece ash, 1-piece ash, 2-piece black limba, whatever wood we're using. Neck holes, are we doing Fender? Are we doing something a little bit more custom? 99.9% of the time, this is going to be Fender and drilled. I think I've worked on one bass where we were doing a modified or more modern like heel. But anyway, neck holes, what are we doing? Fender, usually drilled. Bridge holes, I typically outline all of my bridges. I know that parts can swap out pretty quickly, or like you're working on a build, you plan everything out, and then like a bridge isn't available, or like you want to use another bridge at the last little second. So that's why I always outline my bridge holes. I don't actually drill anything, I just outline them. So I kind of get you in the ballpark, and 99% of the times on precision bases or P-bass, PJ bases, it's the 5 Fender bridge holes, and I just outline them. On strats, if it's a hardtail, it's usually the 4, the 6 pivot. Point is, I outline it, and then I let people kind of like get in the ballpark, drill your pilot holes, and then drive your screws. I haven't gotten a complaint about that ever since. People seem to like it, and it keeps you from having to plug everything up with the toothpick trick. If you've ever built a guitar before, you know about the toothpick trick, so trying to avoid that if at all possible. And then fab notes, so if I have any fabrication notes, usually if I'm doing like a rear route body, I'll put like, hey, make sure you do your back plate, or like if there's a customer request or a client request, an artist request, I'll write that out right here. Grain fill, if I'm doing grain fill, most of the time I do not applicable here, but if I do grain fill, I just note, what we're doing for grain fill, same with color and finish. And then final QC is when I'm actually finished with it and I'm ready to ship it out. I just double check everything, and then I'll sign off on it and write my notes. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. Very much just kind of follows my build process. And let me know down in the comments if you guys have like a bill of work. It doesn't even have to be related to lutherie or guitar building. Like whatever job you're in, let me know like what processes are working for you, because I'm always looking to refine these sort of things. As you can see, all of these are orders. I'm going to start tagging these up and start assigning them to some blanks, and we'll get a lineup going. So let's go take a look at that. Alrighty, so here's where the fun begins, a pile of raw lumber. So this first little part, you can call it sorting, but I kind of already do sorting when I'm at the actual lumber mill. And shouts to my lumber guy, Mike. He's the best because he will actually cut these down to 4-foot lengths, and then I'll put an edge on it as well. So all these are actually already edged, and so now my job becomes thinking about kind of grain pattern where there might be some obstacles. Like you see this big knot right here, and there's really 2 ways you can go about it. Since it's in a 4-foot length, I can chop the cut in half and then basically book match it or just rotate it and glue it along the edge, which on this particular cut looks like it is this edge, so the leftmost edge. And that would actually look pretty sick because all the character of this wood is particularly down the middle. So if you imagine we chop that in half and then just fold it over, all this nice black striation is going to be in the middle, and it's going to kind of chevron downwards. So that's really what I'm looking for. I'm kind of visualizing in my head what I want to do with each cut. The other option that you have is, since these are in 4-foot lengths, you can actually take a 4-foot length, glue that together, and then chop them into 2-foot lengths. And so you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 blanks out of, 2 blanks. So you have 2 4-foot sections, you put them together, cut them into lengths of 2 horizontally. And so you'll have 1 blank up here, 1 blank back here. And that's another way that you can do it. I think I'm going to do that on this particular one just because this little knot right here is going to be some trouble. If you want to visualize it, if you kind of look at it this way, this is another little trick that you learn after carving however many guitar bodies. If I were to take these two, first off, this is an offcut, so we'll move that. Apologies for the shaky cam here, but if I were to put these 2 cuts together like that, what I can do is once I cut it horizontally, I can put that knot outside of the horn, or the bout as we call it in guitar building world. I guess it's technically called a bout, you can call it the horn, but I can actually position that outside. And so for this one, I don't think chopping it, because if I chopped it in half and flipped it over, I could maybe still make it work. And actually this is a really cool, like, there's a lot of line work around this one little knot, so this was kind of cut at a cross section. Now I'm really thinking about it, but if you have like a really big knot or a really big feature, a trick is just to kind of position that into the upper left or right corner, because those are not usually going to come into the final body because they're just where the horns are. And if you think, I use a 24-inch blank, so that covers me for both basses and guitar bodies. So even then, a strap body may only come up to like right here, and then all this extra is cut out. So I'm going to go through and I'm basically going to chop these in half for the ones that I think would be looking good book matched, for lack of a better word. And for the other ones, I'm just going to glue them side to side, and I'll try and use both processes so you guys can both kind of see how I do things. So without further ado, let's do some time lapse of some millwork. Blank number 1, all the characters kind of on the inside. Blank number 2, about to go glue up, and we've got character on the outside. So we got one outie, one innie. I don't know if that's weird to say. Probably. But anyway, so those are milled down. Let's get to this big, beautiful pile of wood next. Also, I should buy some more clamps. Alrighty, so we're about to rip this slab down, and I've been thinking, remember, sorry, background noise, this is the cut that has the little bit of a ridge here, and so I was thinking about it, and this is 48 inches long, and typically I do my body blanks and lengths of 24, so I just chop it at 24 inches, but Stratocasters and Telecasters are, the body blank you can do at about 20 inches and still get away with it, so I'm thinking if I cut 20 inches for this first one, then 24 for the second one, that's going to chop about 4 inches off the top here. And even then, when you're actually carving the body, the neck pocket sits further in because you have like the lower and the upper bow here. And so the neck pocket's going to sit in even further. So I think that might be a way for us to cheese it and, you know, make this work out. I'm not going to know until I actually cut everything. But worst case scenario, I can just rip this down, edge this side, and then re-glue it by just rotating it and gluing it so that this is on the outside. So let's see if that works. I'm gonna go ahead and take this through the table saw, and we will get it chopped down. Alrighty, so we have our blank ripped down. Hopefully you guys don't mind me skipping the table saw part. I figure plenty of you guys have seen somebody rip a piece of wood down on a table saw, but if you guys want to see the whole process, including all my table cuts, let me know down in the comments. I don't know if that's entertaining to people, but once the people tell me, I will do it for sure. So we've got everything milled down, and I have a kind of a test body here. This is just a B-stock body that I've been testing some finishes out on. And if we put it on top of the blank, you'll notice that the neck pocket sits in the ridge, but I think that the neck pocket is deep enough that once you route into it, it should take care of itself. So bless up for that. I think we should be good to go with this particular one, as long as we're really disciplined in our setup, which we'll talk about here in a little bit when we get to the actual CNC part. So yeah, millwork, a lot of times millwork is just kind of knowing your material and knowing these little tricks to kind of work around and work with the material so that it all works out for your purposes. So milling or millwork is kind of fun in that way. It's kind of like solving a puzzle. So we also have over there, that is the blank that was on this side. So we'll be mounting that up here in a little bit as well. So it's all working out. Let's continue. So now that you guys have seen when you take two 4-foot lengths and glue them together along an edge and then rip them down on the table saw, let's talk about taking one of them and then cutting them in half and moving them over. This is another great way I was talking about earlier to make a body blank. It also works really, really well when you have like knots and these weird insertions that you kind of need to work around. So I believe the edge is on this side. So we're going to be chopping this in half and then gluing it. And then when we do that, this should appear on either the lower center or the upper center, because if you figure chop it in half, rotate this part over, this will be on the bottom. And that's what you want. That's really my determining factor, whether I'm chopping it in half or if I'm gluing them together and then chopping them in half. So these ones have weird insertions. We're gonna chop them in half, get them glued up, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's get that going. Oakley dokley. So this one, total success. We got the knot in kind of the upper left quadrant, so that's where the bout is going to be. And again, remember that the body is going to start from down here, so all this area up here, sometimes it doesn't even cross it, so that should be totally fine. On this one, remember how we were planning to get this one in the lower part of it? Well, sometimes wood will surprise you. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of Behave yourselves, by the way. So with that, we're going to put this in the upper sort of part. That way the neck pocket will come up right here, and then it should be out of bounds for the actual cut. And as long as it's along the center line, like I said, the neck pocket will be further down here, so you should just miss that. So yeah, again, millwork, just a lot of knowing your material, kind of spatially figuring out what you want to do with it, and then using a bunch of glue and clamps to make these things. At least that's the kind of millwork that I do. Millwork is obviously a all-encompassing thing. It's a big part of woodworking, but once you know a couple tricks, it gets to be a lot easier. Let's go ahead and get these glued up before I continue to yap myself into a corner. Alrighty, bit of nerdy machinery break here. So this is my CNC machine. It is something of a homebrew design that I designed myself based on a lot of different models of CNC that you can see out there. Moving gantry, all that good stuff. But more importantly, what we're going to talk about here is the spoil board. So this is the spoil board. This is the part of the CNC machine that actually the workpiece gets attached to. And if that sounded really complicated, basically this is the bed of the CNC machine, and this is where you put the body blank. Now, in CNC manufacturing, there is a great deal of focus on what are called setups. And as you know, a guitar body has features on the front side and on the back side. So what happens is, and what you may have noticed in some of the time lapse, or what you'll see in the time lapse moving forward, is that you'll do all your operations, you'll do all your cutting and stuff on the front end, and then you have to flip the body over and then do all the stuff on the back end. So it is super duper imperative that you have a reference point for when you flip everything over, so that the CNC machine knows like where to go and everything is referenced correctly, and you're not like cutting at an angle or something like that, or the back isn't angled as opposed to the front. Everything lines up and is super duper slick. So the way that I do that is I have this center line right here, and basically what I do is on all my body blanks, you'll notice that they're two pieces, so I just glue them down the center, and that basically becomes the center line because I know that it's edged and it's glued together, and I reference it along the center line, and that way when you flip it, it's just an exact mirror. Like you flip it over and then everything kind of flips over. A lot of people will reference from the bottom left or the bottom right corner, but with that you have to calculate how wide the workpiece is, and that might change every single time. When you do it from the center, it's a lot easier because it doesn't matter how wide the piece is, your reference point is the center. The center is not going to change no matter how big the pieces on the left or the right is. The center is always the same, so it should always be referenced. And you'll notice that over time, there's a lot of different ways to do CNC work holding, but I have fallen back on maybe the most destructive, and I just use screws to bolt everything down. But as you can see, it puts all these little bullet holes into the spoil board, and really at scale, especially when you are catching up on orders and you have an order queue that is now 8 deep. I got another order in the process of getting the other body worked up. I was so gracious to have a returning customer, you know who you are, order a telly base. So we're going to be doing a new design in this video as well, but that came through, so now we're just a little bit deeper. Point is, if you are super duper deep in order queue, you need to have a quick and repeatable setup process that you can just drop bodies on, have a common sort of fastening or sort of way to hold everything down, and then just gun it and go. So what I've done is I have this template here. I used this a long time ago. I made this a long time ago. This basically has the center line right here, and you'll notice that there's these little pockets right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up with the center line of the board. I'm going to mark these pockets, and then I'm going to take threaded inserts. You can kind of see I have some right here for work hold clamps, but I'm going to use these threaded inserts, and I'm going to put those down into the bed, and then that way I can use this template, line it up with the center line on the body blank, just mark where the holes are, drill them, and then I can use regular fasteners like this to hold the workpiece down, align it correctly, and I'm not having to put all these holes into it. Hopefully that makes sense, but we're going to do a minor interlude here. I'm going to get those inserted, and I will see you once that's done. Alrighty, body number 1. This is going to be a black Limba PJ bass. Let's kick things off. Alrighty. There is body number 1. I really like the grain on this one. And as you can see, it's going to need some significant sanding. We'll get to that in a second. Alrighty, here we are with setup for body number 2. I'm really excited about this body because the client actually requested to get a little bit of a tighter grain on it. So as you can see, well, right here in the middle, there's some wide grain, but here, real nice tight grain lines, as you can see. Just adding that little Madlad touch to it whenever people ask for it. The client was asking, they're going to be doing a sunburst on it, which I'm really stoked for. I really love when there's a lot of grain character underneath the sunburst. So we agreed on a tight grain pattern. So we're going to be doing that with this one. Got it bolted down. Have to do a little bit of tweaking to the inserts, but in theory, this does work out. So hopefully I can start using that for a lot more repeatability. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to see if I can get you guys a little bit of time-lapse footy. And we'll get to cutting on this hardtail strap. Let's kick it off. All right, did you catch all that? That was a really captivating 3-second time lapse, even if I get 3 seconds out of it. So this is another machinist tip for you. Definitely stay by your jobs when they're first starting for the first minute or two, just to make sure that nothing crazy happens, like your end mill clipping the screw that was holding everything down, and the outline of your body, including a huge gaping hole that you left from the template that you were using earlier. So, needless to say, here at Madlad, we're all about failing forward, fail often and early to succeed sooner. That was written on the front of my high school astronomy teacher's desk. Shout out to Mr. Biles. Anyway, so this is something that you run into when you use shorter body blanks. You don't have as much room for error, but we can turn this bit of lemons into lemonade. We're going to turn this into a telly body. Telly bodies are just a little bit shorter. They don't have the big old upper bout over there, the horn. The technical term for it, as I mentioned earlier, is a bout, but you can call it a horn. But it doesn't have that part of it, so it's kind of a little bit shorter. We can nudge our starting point up just a little bit to get past these two things, and it should all work out. So just going to flip the script a little bit, turn this into an arm and belly telly. I do have an order for an arm and belly telly in the queue, so we're just going to turn that order into this body into that order, and then we're going to find another nice tight piece of grain, or a tight grain body blank, to do this awesome hardtail strap that's going to be going out. So let's turn 10 and make some lemonade. Without further ado, time lapse number 2. Oh, bars? That was a rhyme? Let's go. And that is the first half done. So went ahead and bored out these holes a little bit bigger just to see if I can get the bolts to seat into the threaded inserts a little bit better. But this one held with just this one and then the back one, just to kind of keep it from skittering left and right. So you may not need all 4 bolts, but I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. But hopefully boring these out will allow me to get a better grip on the threaded insert and not have to worry about having a smaller hole and it being shifted left or right. That was a problem that I was running into a little bit earlier. So let's get this guy flipped over. We will do the back half, and I'm going to try my best to get you guys some good time-lapse footage here. One of these days, I'll get you a full time-lapse, but let's see if today is that day. Time-lapse number 3! Looky here, looky here. That, my friends, is an HH arm and belly telly. Fresh off the CNC, new to the Madlad product line, going to be going up on the Reverb store here soon. Innovation in action, and all the other fun corporate catchphrases that you can think of. Let's get on to the next one. And by on to the next one, I actually mean take a step back. This is going to be the new body blank for that super duper tight grain sunburst hardtail strap that we were talking about a little bit ago after we had to do our little pivot. But Nice tight grain on this one, tight grain lines, a little bit of character right here where the arm relief is going to be. I really like when there's an arm relief or an arm contour when the grain is a little bit wider so it can contour over it nicely. And of course we're going to drill the holes. I'm going to show y'all a really neat and possibly OSHA violation of a drill setup that I have over here to get these holes drilled. It's not really an OSHA violation, it's just kind of comedic. We'll look at that in just a second, but we're going to be using our new mounting system that we've been working on and see if we can't start cranking through these bodies. So about that crazy drill setup, here I am in my drill press. I got a really nice big 1/2 inch shank drill bit. This guy has done lots of good service for us. He's starting to smoke a little bit when he's trying to drill through that ash. So we are going to be retiring him. We will give him a proper retirement ceremony. Is it weird to have retirement ceremonies for your tools? But what's going to replace it is even more comedic. Check this out. I had to get a really long drill bit to drill the wiring channels on my bodies, and you can never buy just like one really long drill bit, and you never know what dimension you need, so I actually got a set, and you can already bet you know what's going on. Look at this 1/2 inch shank. Let's get this mounted up. Alrighty, finish the meme if you know what it is. Damn, boy.
Damn, boy.
Damn, boy. He. And of course, we have to do a proper send off for Mr. Holinator 3000 Jr. Esquire. That's the name that I gave him just now. No, we're not just gonna throw him in the trash. Alright, back to this monstrosity. No, we don't have clearance. We're just ever so slightly off. Alright, we're gonna pivot. Alright, maybe it wasn't a drill bit issue. Maybe ash is just a really, really hard wood, because Sir Drillerson Jefferson 4000 the third here was having some trouble as well. I gotta come up with better names. This is crazy. Alright, so this is a 3/8 bit. This is a 3/8 bit. This is my arm that is tattooed. That's a 3/8 bit. That's what you want to be looking at. We're going to bore this out with a 1/2 inch here in just a second. So we just did starter holes, and then we're going to drill it out with 1/2, and all this drilling chicanery will come to an end. In all actuality, I will probably invest in smaller drill bits. This was just comedic and what I had on hand here at 1 in the morning. So I digress. Moving on. Back at it again. And kicking off the sanding portion of the video now, here you can see me starting in on this beautiful black Limba PJ base body that we saw earlier. And it's time once again for me to talk about one of my favorite things in the world of woodworking, and that is progressive sanding, which is simply just starting at a coarse grit and working your way up to a fine grit. And on Madlad bodies, if I'm shipping them out, I usually start around 100. That's as coarse as I'll go. And really when I'm doing 100 grit, I'm really only using it to knock down like really prominent features like tabs that were left over from machining or some really like prominent machine lines. It's really, really easy to remove a lot of material very quickly with 100 grit. And if you've ever sanded anything before, you know it's a lot harder to put material back than it is to just take the extra time and sand at a higher grit so that you don't make mistakes. So start at 100 grit, then really most of my sanding starts around 220, and then after that I'll do 320 to get it smooth to the touch. And here's actually a special clip. Here you can see me putting down some grain filler on this particular body, this arm and belly telly that we were looking at earlier. For my grain filler I use Aqua Coat. I like Aqua Coat because it is water-based, which makes it easier to mix with like dyes. I typically use Unicorn Spit to dye my grain, but in this particular build they just wanted clear coat, so we just did clear coat. Here I am drilling out the contour holes or the control holes so that all of the electronics can be routed into the control cavity, and I take a little bit of a break there because I did nick one of my fingers on the drill and had to get it patched up. And that is our first round of sanding done. Alrighty, let's talk about shipping for a little bit. How do you go about shipping a guitar body or a bass body? Well, the answer is about 24 inches long, 14 inches wide, about 4 inches tall. So this is a 24 by 14 by 4 box. I think it's a standard dimension. And I wrap everything up in the same sort of paper that I put down on my workbench. It makes a nice little last protective layer for the the guitar against like scratches and stuff like that too. And as you can see, every order comes with a handwritten note. That just means the whole world. As you can see, I am creatively obfuscating the client's name here. This is becoming a oncoming bit, but I just like to write a little handwritten note for every little order, just talking a little bit about how I'm thankful for the order, anything that I worked on during or any notes that I had during the actual build, and just a general thank you. It's a nice touch. It's gotten me a lot of compliments, and it's just that kind of small business feel to it. And then we have just kind of an informational floater that I'll put in there as well, talking about sending pictures, writing a review, and if they have any issues, they can always get in contact with me, because I do offer a 100% money back satisfaction guarantee. My sweet Mima, God rest her soul, would always say if they're not happy, give them their money back, no questions asked. And so we're doing a little bit of Mima school of business with that one. So yeah, with that in mind, I'm going to put all these in an envelope, throw them in here. And then I actually, when I have a local shipping spot, a local postal annex here in McKinney. Shout outs to Scott and Keith down at Postal Annex McKinney. But they actually set aside like some padded packing material that I can use, and they'll like sandwich it in between. When you actually drop this off, I'll see if I can get a clip of it, and that will actually protect it and everything like that. So put these in an envelope, put that on top, and then it'll get sandwiched with some nice packing material when we get down to the postal section, or postal annex, and then we just ship it off. And back there is bass number, or guitar number 1, that nice black limbo bass. And this one's interesting because the client actually requests that I send out some scraps, and I'm happy to send out scraps. This actually saves me a lot of space in my workshop. So he was going to be doing a headstock laminate or headstock veneer, so I have this stack of black limbo offcuts that are roughly the same grain pattern, and I cut them down to a 1/4 inch just so that he can veneer them. And then he asked also for another offcut just for like staining practice and, trying out different stains and stuff like that. Very common. I am very open to sending out scraps and stuff like that. Usually there's cutoffs and scraps from not just your body, but also other bodies that I've made as well. You get these little husks. But if I don't send out scraps or you don't request it, there is something really, really cool that I do with my scraps that you'll see in an upcoming video that I'm currently working on. So definitely make sure that you're subscribed down below so that you can see how I turn my scraps into some really creative kind of projects. And I'll leave it at that. I'll give you a little something to munch on. But anyway, we're going to get these both boxed up, and we're going to go ship off our first 2 in this long order queue. And that is a rhyme, and it's not a crime to be literate, so get with it. We're just dropping all sorts of bars this video. Let's go. Oh, and another quick word on the platform that I use to actually get my shipping labels. Reverb does let you do shipping labels through their platform, but I've never really had much luck calculating the rates, and sometimes they're a little bit higher than what I get through a service like Shippo. And Shippo is like a bunch of other services out there. They basically do bulk ordering, and they get better rates through like UPS, USPS, and those guys. So I just happened to stumble on these guys. They're the one that I use. I haven't had a problem with them. Their interface is really, really slick, and I really, really enjoy using it. But there's a good number of shipping service providers out there that you can use that'll get you a good rate. So shop around, see who has the best rates, and if you're looking for just a quick one, not sponsored or anything like that, but Shippo has been good to me. I've done probably over 50 orders with them now, and I've never missed a beat. So really appreciate what they do. Shout outs to Shippo. And yeah, that's who I use for labels. So the power cutoff, or I think my router was pulling, or spindle was pulling a little bit too much current. Usually that is because the end mill starts to sink a little bit or sag a little bit, and so in turn the spindle has to compensate by drawing more current, and eventually it just trips the breaker. So it's going to take a second for my CNC and everything to reboot, but it gives me a perfect time to talk about a little bit of a pivot that we had to do. You may have been saying to yourself in the time lapse, wait, Drew, Drew, it's off center. Yes, that is by design. I put the center line, the center point just a little bit off of the center line. And the reason for that is, see if you can see it back there, that little bolt right there. Let's see if it'll focus. Come on now. You see that bolt back there. But originally when I was doing it, or I was doing the cut, the contour was about to just like smash right into that. So I cheated as all good machinists do. But we just moved everything over 10 millimeters to the left, and that takes care of it. Just like this autofocus is taking care of this shot. So this is going to be a perfect example of why centerline indexing is the best, or I'm calling it centerline indexing. Basically everything rotates around the center line, because even though that is offset, once we drill it and we flip it over, we just re-index it, or we index the machine to the resulting hole that'll be over here when it's flipped, and it'll do it. If you're trying to do it from the left side, you'd have to do all these calculations and figure out a bunch of stuff. For all my CNC bros and gals and non-binary pals down in the comments, you know what I'm talking about. Or maybe it's super duper simple and I'm just overplaying it because I really, really like my particular setup and the Dunning-Kruger effect is a real thing. But I digress. We are going to let this reboot. I'm going to kick up the time lapse, re-index everything, and we are going to double check that the end mill is secure, and then we'll get it cooking again. Let's go. Here we are, guitar number 3, I believe. Number 3? We're gonna go with number 3. So, this is why having good setups is so important. So, in the past, I've had like this top little, or the top half of the body being shifted over to the right or the left a little bit. You can see a little bit of that right here, but that is super duper manageable. We can just hit that with the sander or the rotary sander, but it used to be like way further out, and the reason for that is because when you do your setup, you would be turned to the left or to the right. I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but with screw holes and stuff like that, it's not nearly as consistent as the new setup that we have. So just trying to illustrate a little bit of why why I was so big on making sure that we have the bolts in the setup correct and make sure everything lines up along the center. So we're going to be able to knock down these edges, no problem. There's a little bit of a tab residue there, but yeah, I'm super stoked to see that the new setup is working. And we also have a base body on the CNC, and so we're pretty much go mode from here. The new setup is working really, really well, and I think it's producing consistent results. This is going to cut down on my sanding time immensely, which I appreciate. And so yeah, let's just keep sanding and keep grooving. Alrighty, so you remember that part earlier where I said there would be a point where we're just kind of go mode and I'm just showing you the process? That would be now. And so that allows us to open up the avenue for sanding soliloquies, which is what I'm calling this part. Basically just going to yap for a little bit to give you guys something to listen to while you watch me sand. Feel free to watch the sanding, feel free to just listen to me, whatever you're feeling. And today, I wanted to talk about hope. And more specifically, I want to offer up the idea that hope is an act of defiance. Let me say that again. Hope is an act of defiance. Have you ever thought about it that way? Maybe if I were to frame it this way. Think about the fact that we live in a world where hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars are spent to make us mad, to try and divide us. Oh wait, we actually have a body we're about to finish. Check this out. Success! Man, that body's looking good. Anyway, getting back to it, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details of how social media and news nowadays is making us hate each other and dividing us and making us feel despair and making us feel like our lives are worthless, but that's the world that we live in, and it's not enough for us to just leave it at that, but it's also not enough for us to just say, we need to have hope and look towards a brighter future, because that's kind of a nothing burger, practically speaking. So how do we have hope? How do we fight up against a machine like that? I'll tell you right after we ship these bodies out. Check out this stack. Looking good. So, new record. 3 shipments going out in the same day. That is the most, or the highest number of guitar bodies or guitar and bass bodies, because there was one bass in that shipment, that I've sent out in a single day. So shout outs to the boys at Postal Annex. Let me show you guys a little bit of a tour here. This is one of my favorite parts of town here in McKinney. So here's Postal Annex, where I send all of my stuff out of. Then over here, there's Sally's Italian, which is a bomb-ass Italian place. Really, really great pizza there. And then if you look a little bit further back over there, actually, let's get a closer look real quick. Okay, so I couldn't get a good shot without reparking, and I'm definitely not going to be taking video while I'm driving. That's dangerous, but hey, we're at Guitar Sanctuary. This is a shop that many of you guys might know from other videos. I'm going to go in here and yap with my friends and maybe waste some payroll. So let's go check it out. Man, get a load of that knot right there. But as we saw in the earlier bodies, we're just going to shift everything over. Here is a strap body for scale, so we should be able to squeeze a body out of this naughty blank. Here I am gluing it up, and we're back for more voiceover and more talking. And to bring you up to speed, we were talking about hope being an act of defiance, and how the world's kind of dark because all the forces of information around us are usually trying to break us apart and make us feel sad. So hundreds of millions of dollars, all of these resources poured into making us feel sad and despair. Wouldn't an act that counteracts that, an act or an idea that counteracts the idea that life is terrible and not worth living, wouldn't an idea that stands contrary to that be defiant? And wouldn't any activity, any sort of motion, any sort of motivation towards acting against that, wouldn't that also be defiance? So in that way, we can't just say that we need to have hope and stuff like that. We need to go and act. We need to find ways to actively be defiant and to stand up against the machine that is trying to divide us. And that looks different for everybody. I mean, if you're somebody who uses a lot of social media or uses social media for your business like I do, it can be hard to avoid it. But sometimes even the act of just swiping out of an app like that, as corny as it sounds, that is an act of defiance. So I think in the modern day, when tyranny is abound in the world, hope is our greatest act of defiance. Anything that you can do to counter hate with love, any sort of sentiment, any sort of comment, any sort of word, any sort of action, any sort of thing that you can do, any selfless act that benefits another person is an open defiance of the evil powers that be in this world. And if you're like me and you're inherently a stubborn and defiant person, this is the perfect time to choose hope. It's the perfect time to go out and do something. It's the perfect time to offer a helping hand. It's the perfect time to sit down and talk with somebody, find some common ground. And I realize all those sound kind of corny, but roll with me a little bit here, because I realize you probably just came here to watch me build guitar bodies, and I am just one guy in his garage building guitar bodies, but I feel very passionate about this and I want to share it with you. I think that if we reframe our thinking, if we reframe our thinking, that's a lot of thinking in one section, but if we shift our thinking, if we shift our perspective away from hope being just a word and this kind of nothing burger that we just say but we don't do anything about it, but instead we turn hope into this act of defiance. If you frame it that everything that I do that gives love and compassion and understanding to myself or to my fellow person, if that's an act of defiance, at least for me, as a stubborn 20, or actually I'm a 30-something now, kid that is just naturally defiant by nature, I like the idea of hope being an act of defiance. That I can go out and I can put a middle finger to this institution, to this machine that has had millions of dollars dropped into it to try and make me sad and full of rage and wanting to kill my fellow person. If I could squander all that for them, if I could put all that money into a huge furnace and say, nah man, you did wrong, you wasted your money, this machine isn't working on me. If we could all do that collectively, think of the power that we would have. Think of the hope, the real hope that we could offer one another if we just choose to be defiant, if we just choose to do things, not just say the word, we need to have hope, but to go and do stuff that gives people hope, that gives people love, and counteract this evil machine. That's a world that I'm really stoked to live in. So, reframe your thinking. Start thinking about hope as an act of defiance. It is an act of defiance. And against the tyranny that we live in today, it is our greatest act of defiance. So go be a stubborn, defiant mad lad. And then tell him Drew sent you. All right, let's get back to it.
Okay, it is now close to 5 a.m. in the morning, Wednesday morning, and we have just finished 2 bombastic weeks here at Madlad. Bear with me if I'm not bringing the energy right now because I'm really tired, but we have crushed this many orders, including these 7 original orders that were waiting for me when I got back from vacation, and some other blessings and some other orders that came along the way. We're also cutting off at a good spot. The only thing that I really have on the docket right now is this 51 special, which is, you guys saw at the end here, sort of as we were wrapping up, a lot of really rad specifications, or a lot of really rad specs coming out. So we had that black Limba Super Strat, which is going to be heading out to a local. We've got the double P with the 1 reverse route, P bass. And we have just a couple orders still in the queue, but we're in a good spot. Each of them has been made. Let me actually show you that really quickly.
So the only other 2 orders that we have in the queue, and both of these are less than a week old or about a week old, so we're still well within time frame, they're both going to get their own video. This particular body is going to get its own video because I'm going to show you how I do color and top coat using polyurethane or polyacrylic. And this particular body is going to get its own video because it is a certain specification for a certain body design that is synonymous with a particular musician who also has a Ben & Jerry's flavor named after it. And after all the calculation, all the millwork, and all the buying, we still have 1 body blank left over. So if there is an order that comes in, I will quickly tag that. It's always good to have 1 in reserve or a couple bodies in reserve. And finally, I forgot to show you guys this. This is some curly maple that I picked up at my lumber supplier. Shout outs to Mike again. So I've got a whole collection of wood. Maybe I'll do a video on the wood library. And I've got this really nice, like super duper flamed maple that I'm saving for a special project. That's going to be a special stash. But I wanted something that I could do like some necks with. And this is actually perfect stock. I'm going to do a whole video on building necks, and the long and the short of it is 7 to 8 inches is the perfect blanket. I think these hit right at 8 inches. We'll talk more about that in the actual video, but these are going to be great. I'm probably going to get like 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 8 necks out of these 2 sheets, and then this particular offcut is just the right length to be doing some fretboards. So definitely be looking forward to that.
But that order queue aside and the minor aside for curly maple aside, that was a lot of asides in 1 sentence. Needless to say, you guys can tell that I don't shy away from crazy ideas. So if you have a crazy idea, definitely let me know. And I think a lot of these are going to be going up on the main Madlad product line. So definitely check out the Reverb store link down below for the coolest and most up-to-date crazy ideas that I come up with some of our amazing clients here at Madlad. We started the video with 1 simple question. What is the mad and Madlad? And hopefully these last couple weeks or this video has shown you just how mad I can get around here. And hopefully I've lived up to the namesake of this little shop that I've started here in my garage. So I just want to wrap up by giving thanks and saying thank you so much. Each and every one of you has been a blessing. And, you hear me say it a lot in, oh, we've been blessed with another order. Throughout the video I've been saying, oh, it's a blessing, blessed with another order, blessed to say there's another order that came through. I do that intentionally. And the reason that I do that is because it puts my focus back on what's important, that everything that I do here is a blessing. It is a blessing that I get to own my own business and I get to work on these things and meet and communicate and work with amazing people. That is a blessing. There are people all over the world that are wishing and praying to be able to start their own business or do their own thing. And so I don't take that for granted, and I hope to never do. And I hope that when I make it a priority to mention that each and every one of these things that I do is a blessing, because it is, that will keep my eyes focused towards the good that God is doing in my life and the good that God is doing here in this shop, and hopefully the good that God is doing in your life as well. So
thank you, each and every one of you. Each of you is truly a blessing, whether you've ordered a body, whether you ordered multiple bodies, whether you just watched a video, whether you found me on Instagram. It blows me away, the people that I've met so far, and there's so many other cool people that I'm sure we're going to meet along the way. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to bless me each and every day. We've had a record month this month, and this is following another record month. These past 2 months have been record months. So it doesn't get this crazy all the time, but you guys caught me at a good time where I was, having to be on the ball most of the days. And so, like I said, hopefully that gives you a view in the process. Realize it's not too crazy, or it doesn't get this crazy all the time, but keeps me busy. And so I'm thankful and blessed for that. But that's enough of me babbling and yapping. We'll wrap up the video in the normal way, and that is me saying thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube-y things down below. Check out the links to the bands. I've worn a couple different shirts. Every single video I like to wear a shirt from a different band here in the North Texas area or abroad. So if you have a cool band and you want to have me rep your merch, shoot me a DM. We'll see. If I vibe with you, I might have to buy a shirt and give you guys some love, but trying to spread the love about some local acts and local amazing music. So I always put the band links down below in the description, so be sure to go give them some love. Reverb shop down below, Instagram down below. I would love it if you guys could stop by. And I think that's just about it as far as housekeeping. And the only other thing to do is to wrap up in the normal ways, and that is by me saying, always remember, friends, that you are wanted, you are loved, and you are appreciated. You have a special talent that nobody else has, and the world is waiting on you to bring it out. So muster a little courage, go out into the world, and change it. That's what the world's waiting on, you. Always remember that you have a friend in Christ, and you mean the world to me and so many other people out there. Be good to one another, and I'll see you in the next one. See you then.